Hey everyone, Jay Sherm here. On today's episode of Zero to CEO, I'm speaking to Mike Andes, he's the founder and author. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on, Jason.
And today we're going to talk about building a franchise empire through performance-based growth. Now, I've been doing this with my startups for years, like performance-based shares, as opposed to like giving someone equity right off the bat, because you got to earn it, right? You can't just like give someone 10% of your company and all of a sudden they walk away and you're like, well, there goes my equity. So what made you decide to start paying people through performance-based growth versus just, hourly wages? Because that's what everybody does in the lawn industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to say it was like, some genius idea, but realistically, my business was essentially failing. I was growing very quickly, had no money in the bank. People were asking for raises that deserved it, but I had no money. And so ultimately it came down to, I want to be able to pay people based upon how hard they work, and they make a percentage of all the labor revenue that they bring to the business. Seems fair to me, seems fair to them, and more importantly, aligns the incentives of myself with them. So I don't have to micromanage them. I'm not worried about if they're on their phone or if they're not, rushing, or if they're not hustling throughout the day. It's up to them. If they want to make more money, then they can do it.
Right. And let's go back for a second. Like, you had a thriving business that was not making a profit. A lot of people don't understand that because they think that if their business is thriving, they're making a ton of money. Walk us through why that happened.
Ultimately, you can grow top line revenue as much as you want, but if there's no profit and if there's no cash, and furthermore in a seasonal business, when you have an off season where you go negative cash flow, it can really, really hurt. And so, we look at trucks, we look at a number of employees that we hire as metrics of success, when ultimately, if that number in the bank balance goes negative, you're going to have massive problems. And when you come close to that edge enough times, you start realizing there's systemic changes that have to happen in the business for this to actually work.
So how did the performance-based growth change that? What was the shift in profit? Like, how does that matter?
Well, two things. First, from a profit perspective. Secondly, from more of a management perspective. From a management perspective, I was working 80, 90 hours a week trying to manage my crew, hustling from job to project, doing everything myself, juggling. Once I aligned the fact that, hey, if you get the job done faster, you make more money. Because in historically, when it comes to hourly wages, the faster they go, the less money they make, because they're getting paid based upon how long the job takes.
Right.
And so instead of having this collision between, owner and employee, I align everyone in getting the job done as quickly as possible and to the satisfaction of the customer. That's from a management perspective. I don't have to micromanage them, don't track their trucks, record their conversation in the trucks, etc. From a financial perspective, what's really cool is when I pay someone based upon performance, a percentage of the labor revenue, I can actually go into a job knowing what the cost of that labor is going to be. It's no longer a variable expense. It is very close to a fixed expense, because regardless of how long the job takes, I'm giving the crew the same amount of
percentage. Wages. Yeah, that makes sense. And that motivates them to do a good job and get it done quicker. Hopefully not cutting corners. I would assume that maybe that might have been an issue at one point. And how did you rectify that?
It's the number one thing that is brought up when it comes to, well, I can't do that. I don't want to pay people too much. They'll go too fast. They'll get hurt. They'll get injured. They'll do a bad job. Customers will leave. And so we implemented what we call the yellow slip system. It's basically where, hey, we're going to make sure you get at least paid base pay, but anything above that is on the table. Okay. And if you have yellow slips, callbacks, damage cases, that can come out of that performance-based pay.
So it's really up to them to make the best judgment calls on the job. That's really, so. And before I get into any other, topics, I'm really curious about what made you get into lawn care in the first place. Like, I moved into a new neighborhood recently, and I got hit up by so many different lawn care companies and trucks showing up with their logos. And I went with one of them, but because it was like a family friend that reached out to me. So I went through that referral, because you never know what you're going to get. But what made you get into that business? It's super cutthroat. There's so much competition. Like, what did you like about it?
Yeah. Like, honestly, I was 11 years old. The only way I could figure out how to make money so I could save it for college was cutting grass. I
was there once too, when I was maybe like 15, but I get it.
Let's go. So like, I started college when I was 13. So I needed the income. And so I paid my way through college. That's basically how I got into it. So I think we can use software and other elements to make it a more profitable industry.
That's cool. I mean, you looked at it as like a means to an end. You needed it to finish college, but then you ended up making it a business. I think that's pretty cool. Now, how does somebody take a business that's doing well and then scale it to 150? I mean, it said on your website, 150 locations. That was like kind of mind blowing to me. How did you get it to be so big?
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about franchising is you don't have to use your own capital to buy the trucks and the equipment. And it's very capital intensive to scale, 155 locations in 5 years. So it's been 5 years since we started. And our anticipation is the next 5 years we'll get to almost 800 or so locations. And so that's very, very difficult to do if you're spending the money yourself. And we don't have debt or outside investors. So like it's almost impossible because we don't get money back of a $40,000 truck. We don't get that money back very quickly selling $40 and $50 cuts for lawns. So franchising is a great way to scale. Now, selling the franchising and convincing people to take on your brand, take on your systems, that's a whole different ball game.
Right, that's what I'm curious about, because I mean, anybody can buy a truck and lawn equipment and start their business, right? And that's what a lot of them do. They start by neighborhood with their truck. So why spend the money on your franchise versus starting their own?
100%. So first off, let's compare independent versus franchise. Then we'll compare franchise versus franchise. So
Okay.
like independent versus franchise, the reason to join, if you look from just the metrics perspective, is the success rate of a franchise is significantly higher. Now, you could also say, just to kind of steelman that, you could say that someone joining a franchise has more capital, therefore they're more likely to succeed. That's a valid argument. But what's nice about a franchise and the reason someone would join is they don't have to go through all the mistakes that most people do in their first few years of business.
That's
It's
true.
like, here's what works. We've seen this happen 150 times. Don't buy this, do this, use this marketing ad. Here's this copy. This works. And so you're getting a proven method ideally from a franchise. Now, comparing, say, Augusta versus other franchises, I agree with you. Like, why would I pay this money into a system and I'm locked into this thing for a long term? So we did two kind of major things. And that was one, no royalties, it's a flat monthly fee, and you can leave at any time and take your customers. And so by doing that, it was like, look, you're gonna get the recipe, you can start, and you only have to stay with us if you think it's worth it in the long term.
Awesome. Now I need a quick minute for a little boost. You all know how much I love finding ways to stay sharp and productive throughout my day. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Magic Mind, the world's first mental performance shot. It's been a game changer for me. As a creator, I've tried plenty of products, but Magic Mind is in a league of its own. It's not just about an energy boost, it's about the clarity and focus that lasts, letting me power through my podcast recordings and creative sessions without a crash. But what truly sets Magic Mind apart is their incredible commitment to quality and integrity. They call it the Magic Mind Promise. And here's what it means. They only source ingredients from the world's best suppliers, test every single batch rigorously, and even provide certificates of analysis if you request them. Every bottle is inspected by hand, and every production run is tested in their lab. This kind of dedication ensures you're getting the best product possible. Their mission? To create the ultimate beverage for creators made the right way for everyone involved. And if you're wondering, what if it doesn't work for me? They've got you covered with a 100% money back guarantee, no questions asked, and they don't even ask for the bottles back. That's how confident they are. Oh, and they got a Black Friday offer. It's currently 50% off until the 6th of December. Only with my link though. magicmind.com/JasonShermanBF. That's magicmind.com/JASONSHERMANBF. So if you're ready to take your focus and productivity to the next level, give Magic Mind a try. Just use my link. Trust me, it's worth it. Stay creative, stay focused, and now let's get back to the show. And how many customers percentage-wise are staying with the franchise once they start it up?
So this was interesting is the startup phase is always choppy. And so, about 10% of our owners don't make it from $0 to $500,000 in annual revenue. They leave. But once they pass $500,000 in annual revenue, they stay forever. We have yet to have a location closed down that's over $500,000.
That's a heck of a lot of revenue to turn down.
Yeah, exactly. And at that size, they're paying a flat monthly fee. So although their expense to us has not gone up, ideally they're getting more leads. The website's generating more. We're producing more in terms of the coaching and other elements of supporting their general managers as they scale other locations. We also give back our initial fee. So as long as they stay with us for 5 years, we give them back the initial fee for the franchise. So it's an incentive to stay.
I mean, it sounds like first you started super young, which, congrats on that. And secondly, you've turned a failing business into a thriving one. And then it sounds like you started paying it forward to help other business owners with their struggles. Walk me through some of the examples of what you've done to help business owners.
Well, when I was underneath a dump truck and got stuck in the PTO, my
Ooh,
hoodie. And so most people die when they in that situation. Fortunately, by the grace of God, it ripped. There was no seam. I didn't have it. Just, everything ripped, my shirt, everything, and I fell out. I was in the hospital
whoa,
for a couple of weeks getting fixed up, but in
jeez.
that period, realized that my business was not built on systems. It was built on my personality and me juggling everything.
Right.
And so when I came out of that, I immediately started, creating content and just showing all the systems that I was creating. Pay for performance. Hey, don't come back to a job. Make a video for your crew and they can just watch it. All these little things is what I was trying to encourage people to do that. And the reason is because ultimately, when it comes to home service businesses, not just landscaping, but home service business owners,
Right.
there are so many that are struggling. They are working 70, 80, 90 hours a week. They have no money in the bank and they have no idea why. And so over the past year, I've traveled about 30 different businesses and we documented them on YouTube, me going and helping them turn around their business. So a lot of times
Nice.
it's pricing or is it hiring? Like what's the actual bottleneck in the business and resolving that.
Yeah.
But I'm super frustrated by the fact that so many people work so hard and they have no money to show for it and they don't know why.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point on so many levels. I again, as someone who uses these services, I had to get an HVAC company out here to clean out my ducts, right? And from what I heard, it's like really risky. You got to watch the scammers, that kind of thing. And the guys that did the work were just employees of the company, and they were kind of bad mouthing the company. Like, these guys are charging too much money. We would charge less if you call us. Here's our business card, that kind of thing. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening here? So it's almost like businesses have to really figure out, like you were saying, the fine line between performance and pay, and make people feel like part of the company, or else they're going to leave and start their own thing and take all their customers with them. So, what can businesses do to really walk that fine line?
100%. Like, I think in order for an employee to think like an owner, they need two things. One, the information of an owner, and two, the compensation of an owner. The reason that employees don't operate like you, they don't move and hustle like you, is because they're not compensated like you. They don't have equity. So how can we kind of create a system or artificially create a model that is, they feel that way? So for example, those HVAC guys, if they were making a percentage of revenue, they probably wouldn't be complaining about how expensive things were.
They were
Now,
not.
you can't just do one, right? Like that's to compensate like an owner. But then also it's like, can I give them the information of an owner? Because now, instead of them complaining about how expensive their company is, it'd be a matter of like, oh, there's insurance and there's fuel and there's taxes and
Equipment
there's
and
truck
maintenance
costs.
and
And now
yeah.
they see that stuff because of open book management. And so they need the information and the compensation. And when paired together, then I can expect an employee to think more like an owner.
I like that. That's a really good point. And I would hope businesses would do that. But I mean, the owners get a little greedy. They want that top line revenue, right? So let's talk about the first thing someone should do, because this is probably what everyone's going to ask me when I put this episode out. What do they do if they want to start one of these businesses? Any one of them, service based. What are the top three things they should know before they do anything at all?
Number one thing when it comes to any home service business is ensure that you do not have an off season. The number one thing that puts all home service businesses out of business is they have 3 to 4 months where they have negative cash flow, leads stop coming in, etc. You got to figure out a way to bridge that gap, whether it be offering more services, whether it be giving promotional offers and discounts, whether it be scheduling jobs into your off season so that you have a more level revenue throughout that last quarter. We call it Q4 collapse. The second thing when it comes to starting a home service business is realize that not all leads have to be paid for. If you don't have a lot of money, you likely have a lot of time to go knock on doors, Facebook groups, go out and reach out to people in your church and your community. Like there's ways to network and actually get customers without spending a dollar. Now, if you have more money, you go spend money on ads. You can scale this. The third thing I would say is we focus on the wrong thing. When you're first getting started, focusing on being a great laborer is a good idea. What kind of boots am I going to wear? What kind of tools am I going to like focus on that? Don't focus on like strategy and how am I going to get acquired and what about buying out my competition? Like that's a different level. And so I constantly see people that are too small focusing on things that are way too big, and I see big business owners doing $1 million+ in revenue out in the field with their crew working. And it's like, look, you should be the architect of your business at this point, stepping back, helping manage the managers, training, developing the team, the skills, thinking about strategy and acquisitions. And so focusing on the right thing would be probably the third thing I would say to any home service business owner.
Perfect. And before we wrap up, I want to hear your take on social media branding. How can a business owner leverage social media? Obviously, there's some ways, but what's your specific strategy to grow your audience so large and get that big brand? Because it's a lot of competition out there.
Yeah, like keeping in mind that when people come on Facebook or Instagram, they are not looking for your services. They're looking for cute pictures of a cat or their baby or whatever it is. And if they're following, let's call it 1,000 people and their friends, et cetera, Facebook has to figure out with their algorithm what the top piece of content on their feed is going to be. And that top piece of content is probably going to be the most engaging piece of content. Why? Because Facebook wants them to stay on the platform and not leave. And they want them to stay on and consume as much as possible so they can feed as many ads as possible. So if you're creating content that is buy now, here's my promotion, this every single day, you're never going to get seen by any of your customers. It won't even be viewed. Whether it's on your page is irrelevant.
So what should they do?
Focusing on trying to create a more personable brand. Like this is a reason why personal brands outperform company brands all the time.
Right.
Because there's a person behind it. So how can I take my company and make it more personable? Okay, show behind the scenes, show your team meetings, show a job live without being edited, you on a job site, showing what's going on. Talk to a customer, show the video, make it very raw. Like trying to make things too polished is what sometimes we fall into this trap, and therefore become corporate instead of being very homegrown, naturally local to our area. And there's benefits to being able to have those connections and feel more personable.
Totally agree, man. Those are the ones that really draw my attention when I'm on Facebook, is the ones that look like just shooting, like doing an asphalt driveway. And I'm like, oh, there they are just talking about the job and just doing it, right? Awesome. Where can people find out more about what you do, and if they want to maybe become a franchisee or just talk to you?
Yeah, just find me on YouTube. We make videos every week, and Augusta Lawn Care, Copilot CRM, they're just different products and stuff that we build. But I really appreciate having me on.
No problem. And if you guys want to maybe get your lawn cut, it's AugustaLawnCareServices.com. Check that out as well. And Mike Andy's all over the internet. Check him out as well. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.